All right, everybody, welcome back. This is the Summit Podcast. I'm Bob Turner. I'm sitting here with one of the best female basketball players to ever come out of the great state of Maine today, Emily Esposito. I found her a couple of weeks ago at an event I went to that Wendy was attending called Motivate Her Mindset. Yep. And it was a great event, an empowerment event for women. And Emily was one of the speakers, one of the guest speakers. Mm-hmm. And I got to know her a little bit there, and I'm like, that girl's coming on my podcast. So I reached out to her, and here we are, right at Podcast Central, here at Summit Coaching Headquarters. Anyway, it's great to have you here. I appreciate you coming. Mm-hmm. Took a little time to coordinate this, and I appreciate you coming and doing it in person. It's kind of fun for me because I'm staring at the Zoom screen all day long. So this is cool. So thanks for coming. Appreciate you being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Emily.
Yeah, so I always used to be like, oh, I'm a basketball player and and not much else. Right. But usually for a little bit of background and context, I always tell people, I grew up with two older brothers, so keeping up with someone and the competitive drive in nature has always been there from a young age. My oldest brother's 8 years older than me. So that's really, I think, where athletics and competition and motivation came into play from a young age. And then my mom's a nurse, an ICU nurse to be specific, and, she has such great perspective, and I always say that because certain things I've gone through, she's really either played devil's advocate or she, brings in a life and death situation, and it's like, wow, it's not that big of a deal at the end of the day. And then my dad's a carpenter, so just blue collar worker. And when I was younger, I used to go and do carpentry with him. So I like that my family never really, pressed athletics on me. And it kind of came naturally from a young age, and that worked well for me. So that's cool. Like a little bit of background for me.
Yeah, so went to Gorham.
Yep, went to Gorham. Then I got a scholarship for basketball, went to Villanova for my first 2 years. Wasn't necessarily the situation I thought I was originally going into. Wasn't working for me. And, that was really the first time I feel like I advocated for myself. I transferred to Boston University, lower level, lower division, in terms of style of play and everything. And then I didn't even say this at the event, but with a month left in the season, my senior year, I went into the coach's office, and I didn't like how people were being treated, and I'm someone who there's just like a justice thing in me and morals and values. And I'm like, I can't stand for this. And I told her I effing quit, and I walked out of her office. And honestly, I don't like, people are like, you're going to regret that. You need to go back. This was at
Villanova?
This was at Boston University.
BU, okay.
Yeah, as a senior. Yeah. And so many people.
Couldn't believe it, huh?
Yeah, and even my dad was like, you finish things you start, or all that type of stuff. And I totally understood that, but I'm like, I'll still be a good teammate from afar. And I felt like I was becoming a worse teammate and a worse person. And I'm like, the best version of me is on the other side of my playing days.
I bet when your dad had a chance to process that and think about it a little bit, I bet he was proud.
I don't think we've ever, it's funny you say that, because I'm hoping so. I know I talked to my mom a little bit about it, and for her, she went into panic mode as a mom. Sure. Right? This is something that I've done my whole life. And she's like, you just threw it all away. What are you doing? I'm like, Mom, don't worry. I'm still writing out the scholarship, so you don't have to worry about that. And honestly, that was the least of her concerns. She just thought, being in the position I was in and frustrated and overwhelmed by multiple situations, like every year I was in college, she's the optimist of like, Emily, this year it's gonna get better. And it just felt like every year it was getting worse. And so it really did. It was like walking through mud, where it's just like every time you step, like you pull your foot out and then you're stepping the next step, and it's like it just goes back into mud, and every time you're trudging through it. So, but my dad and I have a much different relationship than my mom and I. He's never said that, but I kind of like to think that.
What do you think, Dad? Are you gonna watch this?
I don't know. We'll see how the rest of the podcast.
How big is he? Just kidding.
No, not big enough. Small Italian man. We're okay.
He'll be, oh no, Italian. Oh God, I'm in trouble already. Well, get back up to Villanova.
Yeah.
And so you're there. That's big time basketball, right?
Yeah.
You made it.
Yep.
Right? And so, but you got to a point where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
What was it that, was it just that it was overwhelming or too much or just not happy? What was going on?
You know, I think it was a combination of things. My first year there, I redshirted, which means you don't play. He redshirted all his freshmen because of his style of play was really hard to pick up. So I'm like, okay, and when I was first getting recruited there, every parent is like, oh my God, this is great. Now you get 5 years of free education. You can get a master's. And as like
sounds great.
Yeah, but as a kid, like as a 16-year-old kid,
5 years is a long time.
Yeah, and for me, I was like, one, I don't want to sit my first year. And 2, 5 years of schooling, are you kidding me? I would want to be done with school. Like I was not the kid. My middle brother is the brains of the family. We always say that. Ridiculously smart just came so naturally and easy to him. For me, that's not the case. Like I really had to apply myself. And I was like 5 years of school. But when everyone's telling you, oh, it's such a great thing, you're like, oh my God, this could be good. Like I'm getting a master's and it's for free. And
Right.
But hindsight being 2020, right? Like it wasn't me that was all about the 5 years. It was everyone else. And then I'm taking that in as, oh, that's a good thing, right?
Right.
But that's based on what other people think and what other people want from me.
Right.
And then on top of that, like it's small stuff like the campus is beautiful. The buildings, unreal, all stone buildings. And when everyone's like, oh my God, it's such a beautiful camp, like you can't beat this. And then you come to think of it, it's like, yeah, I'm trudging through that campus, not even looking at the damn buildings when I'm walking because I'm just going from class to practice to weights to my dorm.
Right.
And they only show you the glitz and the glam. But I will say, you know, I went there on the heels of the men winning a national championship, so I'm thinking this is going to be a great culture overall involved.
Right.
And I should have been aware the women's program is not the men's program, so we didn't just win a national championship. The men did.
Yeah.
And I was very close with the coach. I appreciated his honesty. He was also Italian, so him and my grandfather really connected.
Got along great.
Yep. And brutally honest to the point where like he's telling me to go to all these other schools. Hey, like I think you'd fit in Duke or DePaul's system. Great. All this and that. And I'm like thinking, and I asked him after I committed, I'm like, Harry, why were you trying to get me to go to all these other schools? And I always say this now, but I'm like, this is the most profound thing the man ever said. He goes, Emily, because I'm not trying to show you all these things and trying to convince you to come here. I want to know that if you pick Villanova, it's because you wanted to come here, not because I persuaded you. And he coached there for 42, 43 years and had like 3 players in his whole career transfer.
Wow.
You hear about that nowadays, like that's not even a thing.
Yeah.
But then he went through some hard times and struggles, wasn't the same person within those years.
Yeah.
And the environment wasn't what I signed up for.
Yeah.
People, you know, either coming to practice high or fighting, and we'd have, you know, one teammate who was really, like, she took me under her wing and was guiding me along, and it just wasn't the ESPN 30 for 30 I was hoping for.
Right.
And granted, I had to kind of sit back and say, like, it doesn't have to be an ESPN 30 for 30 for it to be a success story.
Right.
And that's what I had to start telling myself. Like, as long as I can take life lessons from this, then I'll be better for it. But when you're 16, 17, 18 years old, that's a really hard...
I think it probably was very easy to look at that and say, well, this was a failure. Right?
Yeah.
And it really wasn't.
Oh.
You know, you put yourself out there like that. You made an adjustment. Right?
Yeah.
And you had the courage to make a change. Okay, so then you go to BU.
Yep.
And did you have to redshirt there as well?
Yep.
Yeah. So how many years so you didn't play as a freshman, played as a sophomore at Villanova.
Yep.
Okay, then left, redshirted,
Yeah.
Played as then a senior?
Nope. So I redshirted my freshman year, which made the next year a redshirt freshman year.
Okay, gotcha.
Then I transferred. Yep, exactly.
Eligibility-wise, yeah, okay.
So then I would have only been a sophomore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because because of Caitlin Clark
Yep.
and all the other ones, I've been watching some women's basketball, right? And I love it.
Yeah.
And but I didn't realize some of these guys been around a while
Yeah.
because of COVID, right?
Yep. We got that COVID year. I think this or next year will be the last year for the COVID year.
I guess some of these girls not even taking classes anymore. They're just playing basketball.
Nope. So
Are
you
they
always
done?
have.
You still have to.
Yep.
Okay.
So whether it's then you're going after your masters, it
Gotcha.
can just be the start. Yeah.
Gotcha. But they're getting their eligibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that had to have been a tough time to be in school too, because you're. I mean, were you there during COVID or was it before? Sure.
I was at BU during COVID happened.
Okay, so yeah. So what a mess,
Yeah.
right?
Yep, exactly. To the point of what my mom was saying, oh, every year is going to get better. It's like, first year, you redshirt, you don't play. Okay, it's tough, but then
Yeah.
I'm like understanding, wow, this like takes a lot of pressure off me. I can focus on school, being away from home. Inevitably is hard for a freshman. You're adjusting.
Yeah.
Now you're not the best player. You're on a team of
All the best players,
talented people who are either as good as you, if not better. So you're making all those adjustments academically. It's tough. Like I went to Villanova, so far enough away from home where it's like, okay, no one knows you, regardless how good you were. Like no one knows you.
No one cares. Yeah.
Right. And then I end up playing my redshirt freshman year towards the end of the year. I'm starting. I'm thinking, okay, yeah, this is great. But I will say, like looking back, I can say I'm proud of myself for not just staying there because I was playing, because I was
Right.
starting.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think so many people ask, oh well, why'd you transfer if you're? I go, it's not about that. Like there was something that just didn't feel right to me.
You feel like you're in the right spot.
Yeah. I didn't want to
Kudos to
become
you
a
for
worse person.
having the courage to make a change, and that it would be you too. So you stepped out of that, finished your school.
Yep.
Where's basketball for you now?
It's a lot of coaching, and it's
Yeah.
honestly learning to love the game from a different perspective,
Right.
because I didn't leave the game with my love intact with it.
Yeah.
Like it was very much, okay, now I'll go be a GA at Arizona, and I really didn't miss playing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's times where like they're running out, they're getting announced, and you have, the crowd cheering for you, and those clutch game-winning moments and stuff like that. You're like, dang, I wish I could have like enjoyed some more moments like that. But I'm like, I don't think that was in the cards for me.
No.
And so now I'm kind of at peace with it. But yeah, getting that like appreciation for the game back, and it, as much as it was frustrating, it gave me so much in the good and the bad.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's great. And you don't see a lot of kids from Maine go D1 in anything, really. They do, but there's not a ton, right? So good for you, and good for you for making a couple of hard decisions. So you got done with school,
Yep.
okay? Let's talk about Em-Powerment.
Yeah.
All right? I'll let you tell that.
Okay, so we will unfortunately have to go back to school only because that's really where it all started, right? Like I was at BU, I transferred to a lower level. I'm thinking like, again, as you said earlier, like I'm immediately thinking I'm a failure. You know, I went to this high D1, now I'm at a low major D1. Like just in, you always kind of have in the back, okay, what are people thinking of this decision I made?
Yeah.
Especially at that age. And so I'm in a communications class. He's telling us to write blogs. I'm like, okay, I don't really, as an athlete, the first thing you write about is athletic experience, all this and that. So I started writing, but it's from such a different perspective of what I'm used to. Like usually I'm writing about the games and, oh my God, this is like how it went. I had the game-winning basket, or I hit my teammate. I look back, I'm like, okay, all boring things, right? But it was about like the in-between moments as an athlete. It was also about like reflecting as an athlete, which I don't think we really do. I think we so often as athletes go on autopilot, meaning like we're told where to be, when to be there, how to dress, what we're eating, and it's like you don't even question it, but you do lose your own opinion, and like you start to lose who you are because everything is laid out for you.
Right.
And so then it allowed me to put on pause and just be like, okay, what have I been going through? No, we went to this game. Okay, this is how it went. It wasn't a great experience. It's okay to acknowledge that. I handed it over to one of my teammates to read. I'm like just asking her for grammar purposes. And she's like, Emily, like this I think would be really helpful for other people to read. And I'm like, what do you, okay, you're a teammate. You're just saying that. Let me give it to someone else.
Right.
Give it to another teammate, same thing. No, seriously, like this isn't about like what everyone sees. This is about the behind the scenes. So kind of what we were talking about earlier, like just being vulnerable.
Yeah. And
side note, I was so mad for so long that people were like, oh, you're Espo, you're the basketball player, or you play basketball, right? And I'm like, and in my head, I'd be like, yeah, but I'm so much more than that, right?
Right.
But I had to like hold myself accountable and be like, yes, I'm so much more than that, but that's all I showed people because that's all I was comfortable and confident in, right? Like,
yeah,
that's where all my confidence and worth came from was basketball. So that's
your
all,
whole identity.
Yeah, so that's all I'm promoting. When people come to talk to me after the game, we're talking basketball, so that's right up my alley, and we can, I'm comfortable in that. Anything else? So when I opened up and I put these blogs out there, just to kind of like see what would happen, the amount of people that reached out to me, I'm talking about like learning disabilities, my ADHD, struggling about being away from home. Then I'm talking about things that like in terms of mindset wise, like standards versus expectation, what that means to me. The amount of people that reached out to me, oh my God, my daughter has ADHD. Like, would you be able to train with her? She struggles to learn plays too. And I'm like, Emily, why for so long do we hide these? Do we push these things away?
Right.
When this is where like true, genuine connection comes from, is people knowing the whole you. Yeah. Which is your struggles, your frustration. And I don't even call like struggles, calling them weaknesses. I don't necessarily agree with that. But it gave me a whole different perspective on like, that's what empowerment is, right? Like, you can't necessarily like use that struggle against me. I'm only going to take that struggle in stride and be so much better for it.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right? Like when you take it out of like hiding, right? Like this thing you've tried to suppress for so long, it's like there's this like liberation and empowered feeling that you have of like, yeah, it's not picture perfect, but isn't that life?
It's not, the ball is not life, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
It's your next t-shirt.
Yes.
Not life.
Yes, that's what I should do.
Well, that's neat. So you have people reaching out to you. What did you do with that?
That's kind of where I'm like, okay, there's a need for this empowerment for, people knowing who they are. Like I think there are so many athletes, right? Like, take aside the sports and everything. Like I sat down with some athletes and I'm like, right, write 5 standards for yourself. And that was like, we're sitting there for 10 minutes struggling. And I'm not talking like 5th graders, or I'm talking like high schoolers. And it just put into perspective, like people don't sit them and ask them these questions, right? Like, and it came to me of like, I want to be there to empower them in a way of like, okay, what is an empowered person look like? It's that they know who they are and they're confident regardless of the struggles, the frustrations, and whatever else, right? Like they embrace everything about themselves, the good, the bad, the ugly. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, they can only do that if they know themselves. Right. So it's like, what are your standards that you have? Those are your non-negotiables. What are your like expectations? I see those as different things. Your morals, your values, like what does your internal compass tell you, right? And I think it's so hard for these kids nowadays with social media, but at the same time, I'm like, once you find that, once you have these things written down, and like, you can always change them is what I tell them. Right. But I'm like, I want them to figure out who they are before they go to college or before they go out there and they're being told who they have to be.
Because for you, it was Espo, the basketball player. Yep. Right? And that was first. I'm a basketball player.
Yep. And then college started to solidify that, right? Yeah. Like we're top 15. I'm on a basketball team. Every teacher, every professor I have, oh, you're on the basketball team. Barely knew my name, but oh, yep, you're Emily. You're on the basketball team. Okay, perfect. Yeah. And right. And hey, who are you? Oh, I'm Emily. I'm number 23 on the basketball team. It's like you're literally making yourself a number, and you're so much more than that.
Right. Well, that's cool. So you had people reaching out, writing some blogs.
Yep.
And so did you start to think, well, maybe there's something to this. Maybe I could actually do more with this.
Yes, but as much as I'm like, and as much as people are reinforcing me, right, like in the right ways, we always
Right.
hear about like people telling me I can't do it and all this. It's like, no, there was so much positive feedback that it was almost overwhelming, because it was also in an area that I wasn't like, I didn't feel I was developed, right? Like it's
Right.
talking in front of people. Like I loathe the idea of that. Like my mom always brings up the other night at the event. She was like, Emily, do you remember when you said you'd never talk in front of a group of people? And I'm like, Mom, now is not the time to bring that up.
Never. Yeah.
But so it was like stuff like that. And I love, like, even my leadership style in college was always like, I'd pull a teammate aside one-on-one. And I think people deal with that better, right? And it's
Right.
much more
Yeah.
attuned to what they need in that
Yeah.
moment. And there's less miscommunication and all that type of stuff. But yeah, so I think there was so much positive reinforcement to go ahead and do this that I was just trying to figure out every different way that I could help someone, whether it was training one-on-one, whether it's mindset training, whether it's just being a support system for
Right.
them. Because I think some kids have parents who are just either biased or it's really hard. It can be overwhelming talking to them, and they need someone who's been through it.
Yeah.
And so I just like to put myself out there to kind of be that. And it's not like I'm anywhere near perfect at it, but I think it goes back to being genuine, and it all just starts with caring, right? Like that's going to help someone so much more than me teaching them how to like shoot a basketball or whatever. That's going to build their confidence more than 1,000 reps of shooting.
Well, I always talk on the podcast about coming from a place of service, and you clearly do that, because it's not like, you know, you're pushing out, you're helping people. You're not getting paid $1 million to do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're not looking for anything in return, right?
Yeah.
But one of the quotes I always say is by John Wooden, a great basketball coach, was you can't truly have a great day until you've done something for someone else without expectation of something in return.
Yeah.
Right? So keep doing that, okay?
Yeah.
And you don't need to care what's going to come of it.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you good things will come of it. So good for you. So what are you doing now? What's a typical day for you? What's going on?
Typical day. I feel like I don't have typical days necessarily. But to be honest, usually if I'm not teaching, so I've been subbing as a teacher, which has been good to just kind of connect with kids. Honestly, almost like a psychological study of like, okay, see where they're at, what they need.
Right.
From a completely different lens besides basketball or besides athletics in general. But usually I'll wake up, work out. I've had to find a whole new relationship with working out post-athletic career.
Right.
Then I'll start getting into, okay, emails or looking at my website. Okay, what's trending in terms of blogs? What do people want to hear more of? Reaching out to athletes if they want to share their story so that they can, you know, share them on Empowerment. I love to ask them questions. Like, I think that's one of the biggest things I think conversations a lot of times nowadays are very hollow. And, right, there's not much depth. Oh, how are you? I'm good. How often do people really mean that?
How you doing? Busy.
Yeah, exactly.
Busy. Yeah. I'm fine. Everybody's fine.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
They're not fine.
Yeah, and half the time, like, I have to catch myself when I'm responding in that way and be like, all right, Emily, just like check it at the door. Like, you don't like to be fake anyways, so why now do you start?
Right.
But usually I'll go through some of those things, reach out to athletes. I love connecting people, so I'll check in with them sometimes. Hey, like if they're transferring, if they're, you know, transitioning out of their athletic career, I'm always trying to connect them with people. And then Tuesdays, Thursdays, I do mindset training with a ton of teams down at XL, AAU teams. Work with them, and then scattered throughout Mondays and Wednesdays, I'll do some one-on-one trainings, whether it's basketball or I'll just sit down and we'll talk shop about, okay, what's going on, more like sports psych stuff. And then I got certified as a life coach, and I'm kind of figuring out where that comes into play. But I will say I feel like I'm in a very stuck point. Like, as much as I feel like things are going and opportunities are coming, I'm like, which direction do I go next? Because I want to help as many people as I can, but it's like, you just have to start. And that's what I'm telling myself. Like, this week has really been kind of one of those pivotal moments of like, all right, set the perfectionist aside. Like, things don't have to be perfect. You just like say yes, do your best, show up as you, and perform to whatever level of your capability.
Go.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Go. Just do it. It's funny, when we started this podcast, I was like, well, I don't know how to do a podcast. But I knew that when we got done with that first one, we'd have one podcast.
Yeah.
And we would have some things to work on. And it just kind of went from there.
Yeah.
So, but it was kind of in the same spirit of what you're doing, which is helping people.
Yeah.
And you're helping people and you're teaching people and you're using your knowledge and experience from a career in athletics to maybe help people avoid stepping in some potholes that you might feel you did, or hey, maybe take a second on that. That might not be exactly what it looks like, you know? So that's great. That's good stuff. So you're coaching, teaching, specifically, what is Em-Powerment?
Yeah, so it's just honestly a resource for current, future, former athletes to come connect, but also to help them transition, take all their skills as an athlete and figure out, okay, what are the ones that, like, what are these great transferable skills that we don't realize are incredible? Half the time, kids as athletes don't understand that teamwork is great. And yeah, people come back and they're like, oh, like, you guys don't understand, like, you have to work in teams all the time, so like teamwork is second nature to you. And we're like, what do you mean teamwork is second? Like, some people in corporate America really have never worked on teams before, so they don't know what it means. So it's like, all right, what skills are worth taking forward into the next chapter of your life, and which ones are worth unlearning? Because there certainly are some that in therapy every week, that's what I'm like going back and forth. What is worth taking?
What's working?
And what's like, what are those rigid mindsets of like, you know, there's always this like optional practice and it's never optional. Why are you making yourself miserable for like no reason? Like I've had to put myself in the situation of like, Emily, this is not a test. You do not have like a conditioning test next week, and you can take your time with this progress, but you don't have to beat yourself up and be so mad about it. Like, so I think things like that have really changed my perspective, but that's essentially what I want Em-Powerment and what it is for athletes now is like, okay, how can we take the best from this experience and bring it forward, leave the rest behind?
It's funny when you start to key in on what you want to do, right? I had a period of time a few years ago where I didn't know what I was doing, what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. And I would just ask myself this is a Friday, I would say on Friday, what do I want to do this weekend? Well, I want to go up north to the camp and cut trees. So that's what I did for about 8 weekends in a row. But that's what I needed and wanted to do right then. You know, it's funny when you take something that you love and you pound it into the ground and you do so much of it and you eat, live, sleep, breathe it, and sadly it becomes something that you want to break up with someday, you know, for a number of reasons. Like, this is the common denominator. Basketball is the common denominator. It's where all this stuff starts. Boom, let's put it over here for a bit. And let's find out who I am as the person and what I have to offer. And it's so much more than highly skilled basketball player. So, well, that's cool. So you're figuring that out. You're still very young. You're doing it. You're kind of stepping out there. You're getting uncomfortable.
You're trying. I'm trying my best. You're getting uncomfortable. Yeah, you're getting out in front of people. There's like 12 people going to watch this. You know, I mean, serious shit right here. I know. I will say I'm a little less nervous with this than I was the other night. I'm like,
there were a couple hundred people there.
Thank God. I said to her when I walked in, I go, thank God you didn't tell me beforehand how many people, because I would have been at home watching it live in my bed in my PJs. So I guess we're just going to show up and give it our best.
Hey, you leveled up, right? You did a little something, you got uncomfortable, right? And in doing that, it wasn't just you that grew, right? Other people see that. They're like, oh, wow. And you don't really know who you might inspire until you're at the grocery store someday
Yeah.
and somebody comes up and taps you and says, hey, I read your stuff.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I saw you at that event. I really appreciate that. Oh, my daughter was with me.
Yeah.
And we heard what you said. And you just need one of those
Yeah.
every now and then. And you're like, full gas.
Yeah.
Full gas. I'm right where I need to be. I'm doing the right thing. So one of the things I talk about with my coaching is the edge, okay? Bringing people to the edge, sharpening your edge, creating an edge, you know, having like how you respond when the chips are down, right? And how, like, asking yourself how you show up differently than other people.
Yeah.
So I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this before.
No, you certainly didn't.
So I'm going to ask you, and if you need a minute,
Okay.
but what would you say your edge is?
I think my edge would be like my ability to get back up. So like being resilient. Like every single year when I say like my mom and I'd come together, it's going to get better. This is right. We're trying to like make this happen. And every year it felt like it was getting worse. But I think it really was the idea, like mastering the art of showing up.
Okay.
Even in the uncomfortable, even in like the frustrating situations, I still was able to show up. And I think maybe I tweak it. Maybe this is my edge, is that like I've realized I'm really good at showing up as me consistently.
Right.
And I don't curate that from one person to another. I bring it all with me. I bring my faith-based, Italian-based, competitive nature, all these different aspects, like these intersectionality pieces of me.
Right.
I think I bring them, and I feel like there are so many people who unfortunately feel like, oh, well, I'm with this group of people today. Maybe I leave this behind. And it's like, you aren't bringing all of you, and that is worth so much. So I would say maybe those two. And I think, you know, my mom's played a big role in that of, I don't know, just in how she raised us, but like just being confident in who you are, and it doesn't have to stem from something.
Right.
It's just in how you show up.
Yeah. I'm sure she's proud of you and how you've shown up after you dealt with adversity.
Yeah.
And sometimes people fold their tent, you know, and they never recover from something like that. You went out and tried something big, pivoted, tried again, pivoted, and you keep pivoting.
Yeah.
You know, and that's really all you can do is keep showing up. And I always say that to people, just keep showing up.
Yeah.
So good for you.
Thank you.
What do you want people to know? I mean, I was joking. More than 12 people will see this. But you've got the floor. I always like to give people the floor toward the end and say, you know, they're getting to know you here a little bit, watching this or listening to it. What do you wish more people knew?
Oh gosh, just that you don't need all the answers to start. And I honestly think it's better if you start before you have all the answers. They're like the best projects, the most impact, the best transformative times of my life. I've started something and had no idea what I was doing. But it's like the other thing that I'm really working on right now is just taking a leap of faith, right? Like that is when you're gonna learn the most. For me, it was like, okay, Emily, we've jumped out here. We have no option but to swim and figure it out as we go. And for me, that's kind of a fun challenge, while at the same time, it's like, you know, in my mind, I've started to trick my mind in terms of there is no such thing as like really failing. It's more like, right, you either come out on the other side with a great story, it was successful, whatever you intended to do happened, or it's like you went about that thing, it didn't work out how you wanted, you just figured out one way to not do something. And that's progress. Right. And I think the idea of just showing up every day and this idea of like 1% progress every single day, that is so manageable. And for me, like sometimes I'm not going to say it's like every day I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to get up tomorrow and be 1% better. But I will say I have like had days where like I go to bed and maybe I'm not like pleased with how my day went, but I'm like, you know what? Like, I see so many spots where I can be 1% better tomorrow, and that actually makes me excited. Like, as the competitive person I am, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have a leg up on today me.
You like to get out of bed in the morning, don't you? I can tell.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask your mother, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Guys, you getting this? I mean, how old are you? 24?
Yeah.
24 years old, wise way beyond your years.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
The things that I've listened to come out of your mouth in the last half an hour, I'm floored. I've sat here a couple times and gone, I don't know what to say next, because I'm not used to that. So, awesome.
Thank you.
Just awesome. You know, to be where you've been, to do what you did, and to walk around with some humility, but be looking to say, who can I help?
Yeah.
What can I do with what I've been through, and how can I serve?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And I mean that. Why lots of people don't learn that lesson ever.
Yeah.
Okay, and you've got a hold of it early, so I know you're going to do big things with that. What's on tap for you next?
Oh boy, you know, I'm working on, okay, what do we want empowerment to be, right? Like,
Yep.
like so many people are so encouraging of this. It's like, all right, Emily, like, this is a time you're gonna have to take a leap of faith. Do we want to make it an LLC or a nonprofit? Do we want an LLC with a nonprofit branch? Like, I want to be able to have scholarships for kids who maybe can't afford places they want to go in terms of college. Like, I want to help every different age group. I want to have mentoring sessions. I want to create modules for college coaches to learn about mental health and how to speak to their athletes. I mean, they have all these modules and tests that they have to take for recruiting. Okay, I understand that. Like, it's part of your job, and the NCAA wants their money, and they want to catch you on small, stupid things that you mess up on. But like, when it comes to the well-being of your athletes, like, I want you to be aware of that. I want you to understand that your relationship with your athlete, as much as it started to feel like very business oriented with NIL, I'm like, it's still two people coming together because of a sport that you love, right? Like, let that be the base foundation, and at the same time, it's like, and then if you take athletics out of it, you're still two people, like, who care about each other. You recruited that kid for a reason. That kid picked your school for a reason. So I really want to kind of change the identity of college athletics and make it this like beautiful thing that people can truly enjoy.
Bring some humanity to it.
Yes, yes, that's the best way to put it. Bring some humanity to it. And then at the same time, I want to help athletes transition out of it. So, okay, how can we put in workshops for them to understand this, that they're not alone? I think the biggest thing is connection. And the other thing that I've realized, like, me helping people or hoping to help people, like, that's very therapeutic to me. And like, the idea of giving purpose to your pain is the most beautiful thing ever, because you can't go wrong with that. And again, it's going to feel good for you, and you're going to be helping other people. Like, that makes the world a better place inevitably. Yeah. So hopefully we transition there, and then like I said early on, you know, kind of having kids learn who they are before they're told who to be.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I'm full of quotes. One of the other ones I like is find your uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what you're doing.
Thank you.
So good for you. Now on to the really important stuff.
Yes.
What do you who's going to win the games?
All right. South Carolina for sure.
Yep.
I just have to go with them. Well coached, disciplined team. They have everything you could ask for.
You got UConn?
I want to go with UConn because I thought I was going to go play there as a little kid. That was my dream. Love Gino, Italian man.
Yeah.
Great guy.
So you're 40 years deep, isn't he?
Yes. And he's just been so consistent. Like, talk about someone consistently showing up, and his team has faced so much adversity. The amount of kids they have out right now due to injury, and this isn't like walk-ons or transfer. This is like kids who have started for them.
Yeah.
Yep. And I love the fact that Paige has come back and everything she's done and what she stands for.
I watched a video on her today. She's been through a lot, injury-wise.
Yes.
I mean, come back. Talk about coming back.
Well, you
knee and knee.
Think about how many kids would have quit.
Done.
Like that is unreal, and to still perform at that high
Yeah.
level, and to still have the character she has.
Right.
I want them to win. I just don't see how Caitlin Clark doesn't have another performance like she did against LSU.
Did you hear what Gino said?
He hopes she doesn't. He hopes it was a personal agenda against LSU.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'm not giving her a reason to have 50 on us.
50 on us. He goes, I think she's the best player ever.
Yep. Screw what I said about Paige. I think
he's already started the mental game,
Yep.
the gyration that goes on. So, were you at one of the games the other day?
No, that was actually last year. My friends and I got courtside to...
I saw a photo, and I usually will, if I have somebody coming on the podcast, I try to do a little homework.
Yeah.
And I said, gee, she looks like she was at the game. Uh-huh. And I said, wow, that must have been something.
Yeah, so that was LSU, Iowa last year at the national championship game.
All right, care to share what you think of Angel Reese?
I think this may be a time I need to bite my tongue. I want to root for her, but I will say she makes it tough.
She does.
She makes it tough. Yeah. I'm not rooting against her.
Right.
It's tough to root for her.
When you put that villain hat on, okay, it's hard to take it off, right?
Well, and to do it at your leisure, like when you want to wear it versus when you don't, and it's like, nope, it's either it's on.
She came out and put that crown on the chair.
Yep.
And go, oh, girl. You don't want to do that,
like especially for a competitor like Caitlin Clark with her talent. You just poke the bear.
Yeah, big time, big time.
Yeah, big mistake. I'm like, I hope you left that crown there. There's bad juju with that.
That first quarter, and frankly, the whole first half. Sorry, guys, we're getting a little basketball talking here. That whole first half, some of the best basketball I've ever seen.
Yeah,
right, hands down. I mean, it was unreal, back, and it was like watching a tennis match.
Yes, firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
The fact that like our women's game has gotten to that pace, and how my thing is, I'm watching at halftime. Caitlin Clark interviewed, huffing and puffing, right?
Yep.
First of all, the fact that she was able to carry her performance into the second half and have an even better second half than first half is like, okay, her stamina is unreal.
Yeah.
But it's a testament to everyone on the court who was able to play at that pace.
Right.
The whole entire game.
She stepped up, I don't know, 8 feet beyond it. When she shoots, I look at the clock because I think the quarter's running out. You know, and I'm like, there's nobody would shoot that unless the time was running out. Nope, she just stepped up, little step left, bam.
Yep,
like,
exactly.
Unbelievable.
Every time tries to get the defense off guard. Okay, you're playing me for the drive this time. Sidestep into my three.
Done.
Come out, guard me, attack you downhill.
Needs about this much space to get the shot off.
Exactly.
Yeah, unreal. It's been fun to watch. I've enjoyed it. In fact, I honestly could not tell you anything about the men's side.
I'm the same way.
Yeah. So it's been. That's what I want to watch. The NBA's tough to watch. Nobody plays defense. You know. So I've enjoyed watching it. We'll watch the games, and I'm rooting for her anyway.
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark. I mean, I gotta see her get it done, but who knows? I don't know.
I mean, I feel like there are kids on each team now that it's like there's not really a team to not root for, right? Like you have Caitlin, you have Paige, you have like South Carolina has so many different kids in my opinion. And granted, I'm just a fan of Dawn and how she runs her program. And like the culture she's created there is unreal. NC State, don't know a ton about.
They broke my heart in 1983, I think it was, when that Lorenzo Charles dunked it over Akeem Olajuwon to win it. Jimmy Valvano was running around the court. Remember that video? You weren't even born yet. But Jimmy V was running around. NC State beat Houston on a dunk at the buzzer from way out by the hash mark. Broke my heart. But
so are you hoping they win or don't win?
NC State?
Yep.
I'm over it.
So you can be impartial.
I can be impartial. But that was when Akeem was in college, Clyde the Glide, Drexler. I mean, I'm showing my age now, guys. But anyway, this is going downhill fast. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. This was great. It was great to sit and just get to know you. My God, my daughter's just a year older than you, I think. So this is probably the biggest age gap I've had in a podcast, so.
I'm honored.
But I'm glad you came, because I said to Wendy the other day, I said, I need more women on the podcast and get a different viewpoint and just talk about some different stuff. So you delivered that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Wish you all the luck. If there's anything I can do for you, please let me know. I'm in the coaching space too, so I see a lot of people. We do a lot of things. Create a community.
Yeah.
Okay, I did a video on that today. Create a community. People want something to identify with. They want something to get behind, and you're the kind of person that can do that. So
thank you.
There's my dad advice for you.
Well, I appreciate that very much.
All right, guys, this has been the Summit Podcast. Emily Esposito. Had a blast talking basketball and life and all that stuff. I hope you'll like, share, subscribe, send it to somebody that you think needs to hear it. Hopefully your dad's not mad at me.
No, he won't be.
Mom, Dad, good job with this one. You guys done good. So, guys, thanks a lot.
The last part.
We'll chop that part out.
Okay.
All right, guys, thanks a lot. Take care.